So if you're anything like me, you feel like you have this calling on your life to just like be an ambitious man of God and just lead others toward him. You may not fully understand what that looks like or what it even means, but you just feel like you're just called to more in life. And I've been studying a little bit about what it means to really be a leader for God. And I was recommended this book called Leadership as an Identity by Crawford. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. And I've been listening to it a lot. I'm only about halfway done, but I really want to just share it with y'all um, because it's really helping me understand what a biblical leader looks like. So if you feel like God's calling you to a position of leadership, like for me, it's literally with this YouTube channel of leading young men like myself in the correct way on how to provide for your families, how to be a Christian man of God, how to be bold about your faith in all these different areas, all things that I'm learning. I feel like God's wanting me to use this platform that I have to share it with you so that you can dive into your Bible for yourself and learn all these things as well. So that's just kind of where I'm at. I say this in almost every video. I'm not a pastor. I'm not an expert on any of these topics. So read the Bible for yourself. But hopefully this can just open up a few doors for you to go further study and seek wisdom in the Bible, and from God on. So about leadership as a young man, how to properly lead your family, how to properly step into this position of leadership that you feel like God's calling you into. I think a lot of people, especially young men, they have the desire to be all that God's called them to be, to step into all the things that God has for them, to fulfill their potential or be this best version of themselves. And I know this because that was me too. And there's a lot of young men that I've come across that are like that until it gets to a point where God starts revealing all the things that are idols in your life that need to come down, that God is actually going to break down those idols, break down the walls you've put up, get you to be very vulnerable and surrender those things to him so that he can build you up properly with the right foundation so he can mold you into the man that he's called you to be. That is a very vulnerable process and a very difficult process because for me personally, I've struggled with this idea of I just want to be successful so bad. I want to build wealth and I honestly put money above God. That was the idol in my life that had to come down, as well as other things. But that was probably the biggest one. And it's not to say that having money or living an ambitious life and making millions of dollars a year is bad. It's not necessarily bad. But making that your end-all be-all mission in your life instead of to know God, to fulfill the calling that he put on your life, to fulfill your purpose, all of those things. It could be through a business that makes $1 million a year, but you don't ever want to put anything above God in that top priority spot. That's what I did with money. Maybe that's you with your pride, meaning like your status and like you have to be viewed by other people in a certain way. Or maybe that's your laziness, like you're not willing to give up, sleeping in, snoozing the alarm. Or maybe for you, that's just whatever your own mission and desires are in life. Maybe you're not willing to submit those things and surrender those things to God, which is exactly what you need to do before he can uplift you and build you up as a leader. So I think it was John MacArthur that said, it's not until you realize that God has given you the job of humbling yourself that God will be able to give you more responsibility. Meaning the sooner that you realize you have to humble yourself and surrender all these things to God, the sooner that he can actually do the work in your life that he's called you to do and fulfill your purpose and your mission for him. So it starts with this humble surrender. And I heard the quote inside this book that I was reading, The Leadership as an Identity, that said something along the lines of, it's easy to surrender things before you have fame and success and money and whatever else, because nobody's looking at you. Nobody knows behind the doors what's going on or something like that. But once you get put into a position of leadership like you feel called to be in, it gets a lot harder to continue to surrender everything to God because then pride can sweep in and be like, oh, well, yeah, I made all this money myself. Look at this car that I got, whatever the case may be. That pride sweeps in and can actually lead to destruction of everything that God's blessed you with, just like we see in the Bible with King Uzziah. So never before heard this, king in the Old Testament, king of Judah, until I started reading about leadership in the Bible. So I just want to read you, and we can see what we can learn from this king in 2 Chronicles. Let's see. So 2 Chronicles 26, Uzziah, king of Judah. And you might even be reminded of yourself, because it's like God's calling this young man to step into this position of leadership and to do these amazing things. And then I'll just read the story and you'll see where it goes. Verse 1, then all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in place of his father Amaziah. He was 16 years old whenever he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 52 years. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father had done. He sought God during the days of Zechariah, who instructed him in the fear of God. And as long as he sought the Lord, God gave him success. So it's this picture of a young man, 16 years old, becoming king and seeking the Lord earnestly. And he goes on to do all these amazing things. He went to war with a well-trained army in verse 6. He built towers and fortified them in verse 9. He had a bunch of livestock and land and people working his land. And it says he was a lover of the soil. Basically, he was an amazing leader, feared the Lord, and the Lord gave him success. But then came verse 16, where it says, but after Uzziah became powerful, his pride led to his downfall. He was unfaithful to the Lord his God. And what he actually did, he entered to the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. And then a priest came in and said, hey, Uzziah, you're not supposed to be doing this. You know this. Basically, only priests could burn the incense. And it says that he was raging at the priests with the thing of incense in his hand, ready to burn it. And at that moment, leprosy broke out on his forehead. And in verse 21, King Uzziah had leprosy until the day he died. He lived in a separate house, leprous, and banned from the temple of the Lord. So literally this story of an amazing young leader, hungry for God, doing these amazing things, probably fulfilling God's mission and call for his life, stepping into leadership, being an amazing king, doing all these amazing things. But then pride got in the way. He thought that he was someone he wasn't. He decided to disobey God. Just like it says in Proverbs 16:18, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. So just like I said, that quote from the book, it's easier to surrender things to God and stay faithful to God whenever you have nothing. But after you become successful, it gets so much harder, because if you let pride come in the way, you might start to say to yourself, it's because of my hard work that I got all these things, or your identity starts to be caught up in all the things God's blessed you with, instead of your identity being in the one who blessed you. So if a king that served for 50 years, who was a great leader, amazing man of God, can fall to pride and let pride get in the way, and then let it destroy his life, what does that mean for us? What can we learn from this, and how can we go about not letting that happen to us? I think the very first thing is that we have to recognize our dependency on God. If we never lose sight of that, we'll be all right. Because it's a matter of recognizing that nothing can be done unless God is empowering you to do it or doing it through you. It's living a life with that prayer of, God, I need you. I am inadequate without you. But by you alone, Lord, am I able to do these things? And that's the only reason of why I'm doing them. And living that life of constant surrender, not just whenever you're young, like King Uzziah did, but also whenever you're old, living a lifestyle of that. And also knowing that just because we're saved, or just because we got blessings from the Lord, like money, fame, success, whatever, doesn't mean that we're exempt from sin or temptation whatsoever. You'll see the same thing happen with King Saul. His pride got in the way. And so many other of these like good leaders in the Bible, and people who you would think, oh, they're not going to mess up or they're not going to fall to sin. They're men of God. No one is exempt. You have to recognize your dependency on God as a lifestyle every single day, denying yourself, picking up your cross daily, pursuing Him. The book says, as long as we're on this side of heaven, we're capable of letting sin take over, hurting the heart of God, and then also damaging and preventing what God has called us to do. 1 Peter 5, puts it plainly. It says, in the same way, you who are younger, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. So verse 6, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that He may lift you up in due time. It's not a matter of humbling yourselves so that you can hurry up and get God's blessings or anything like that. It's humbling yourselves and then under God's mighty hand. Like, God is the one leading your life. You are no longer the king of your own life. You are no longer the one in control of your destiny or your purpose. You submit that to God, and He is the one that leads you and gives you purpose, and you just do whatever He wants to do through you. It's living a life as a servant to Him. The same thing like Romans 12, a living sacrifice. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. And that's where that famous line comes from. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. So it's not until we humble ourselves, offer ourselves as living sacrifices to God, and then transform constantly by the renewing of your mind, not a simple one-time act, but an ongoing renewing, an ongoing surrender, an ongoing recognition of dependency on God, inadequacy without Him, and that it's by Him alone that all things are possible. By myself, God, I cannot do this. I cannot fulfill the mission that you put on my life. I cannot fulfill my purpose. Lord, I need you to show up for me in this moment. I need you to show up and work through me. Does that make sense? Like, allowing God to work through you. You are a vessel. You are a messenger. You're simply a vessel that God can use to further His kingdom, His mission, His purpose on your life. And something about the character of God that I've learned from this book as well. They had a point where it said, God loves to give imperfect, incapable human beings impossible missions. And He does this so that we can recognize that we simply cannot do it alone, that it's impossible without Him. But with Him and through Him, all things are possible. So it doesn't matter whether you feel like God's calling you to that greater sense of purpose in your life, to start making YouTube videos like this and somehow being a leader to a certain group of people, like I feel like He's done for me or is working through me to do. Doesn't matter if this is just simply to lead your family well. Doesn't matter if you're in a position of management at a business or you own your own business and you have people who work for you. In whatever way that you feel like God is calling you to be a leader, it starts with surrender. And then as you go, God will lift you up in due time. But just like we learned from King Uzziah, the second that we allow pride to come in our life and take our eyes off of God and put it onto ourselves, and then it becomes selfish ambitions, selfish desires for our own will instead of God's will. King Uzziah broke out in leprosy, so I don't know. Maybe that'll happen to all of us. But on a serious note, Proverbs says, pride comes before the destruction, and a haughty spirit comes before the fall. So it's just about keeping your eyes on Him. Don't put your eyes on yourself. Don't think that, like in Deuteronomy, it says, you may say to yourself, it's by my power and my strength that I produce this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, who gave you the ability to produce the wealth in the first place. So if you are a Christian living your life for God, it's no longer I who do all these things, but Christ through me. And that's the foundation of a biblical man of God and Christian leader. So I hope this helps. Go dive into your word and just read about Christian leadership, and so that you can learn even more. Dive into the story of King Uzziah, dive into the Proverbs, dive into what Jesus taught, and see what we can learn from David, Solomon, like all these guys in the Bible, and how we can apply it into our own life to be men of God, to be leaders for him, and so we can advance his kingdom and fulfill our purpose by allowing him to work through us to do so. By the way, if you're a young man that resonates with this video, like, first of all, leave a comment, let me know. I do really appreciate every single comment. I read every single one of them. But two, we have a Discord community. It's completely free to join. You can attend Bible studies. You can attend our Monday morning devotion that we're currently doing at the time of this video, and just have a community of other young men who are either been living for the God or thinking about it and just want to figure out the Bible, like everything from all walks of life. Young men who just want to do life God's way. If that's you, you can join in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the Discord. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.